Academica Media. From Academica Media Studios in Miami, Florida, it's Big Ideas in Education, a weekly recap of inspiration and innovation in your school.
Hello, education lovers. Welcome to Big Ideas in Education. I'm Ryan Kairalla from Academica Media. And boy, oh boy, do we have ourselves a great guest this week. Always a pleasure to be joined by the novelists. I feel like we get to raise our IQ a bit just by having a gifted novelist here with us. Joining us on the program is Jenna Edwards, the award-winning producer, actor, and author of Aggressive Optimism, a new novel about the coming-of-age story that explores themes of mental health and perseverance. She is a sought-after voice on the subject of instilling resilience in students, and you can find out more about her work by visiting jennaedwards.com. Jenna, thank you so much for joining us this week.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for having me. I've never been called gifted before, so I'm kind of excited. Like, what?
Certainly warranted. I mean, the resume speaks for itself, and I'm really excited to hear your insight on this subject matter. This is a subject area that is very, very near and dear to my heart. To start things off, let's start right with the title. What is aggressive optimism?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked. So aggressive optimism is essentially a mindset where you don't ignore the situation in front of you. You acknowledge what's going on, whether it's good, bad, ugly, indifferent, whatever it is. And then you are optimistic about figuring out a path forward. And I like to say that it's the opposite of toxic positivity. I don't know if you've heard that term before, but
I'm in education, so yes.
Right? It's like this whole idea that you should just smile through the pain and, whatever you're going through will eventually turn out fine, which I fully believe. But I also do not believe it will turn out fine if you ignore it. And through my own journey, I had an experience where denial almost killed me. And that's why the book exists. And that's why aggressive optimism in general as a mindset grew in me to the point where now I can talk about it, because denial is poison and we all need to be more aggressive about our optimism, which means more realistic, to be honest.
So the Aggressive Optimism novel is somewhat autobiographical, fully autobiographical?
Definitely somewhat. I mean, I would say it's probably 90% biographical, but I didn't want it to be my story fully because I wanted to write it specifically for young adults, high school students, so that they could have a character at an age and a stage in life that they could relate to. But the feelings, the emotions, the story of aggressive optimism as a whole is autobiographical.
And certainly an important subject to be instilling within the education system. Are there any lessons that we can draw from your book to help schools, students, and teachers instill a mindset of optimism on their campus?
100%. So let me just give you a quick rundown of what the story is so that you can kind of understand how it might fit into my main goal and dream is to get it into curriculum, because I feel like the topics that I write about in the book are so important yet super difficult to initiate with young people. And so I wrote the book so that teachers and educators and parents could have like a gateway into those conversations on mental health and perseverance and resilience and all of the things that we really want to instill in our young people, but maybe don't know how. Or maybe, like, I call it spoonful of sugar media. It's like spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down. You know what I mean? So like this book is an easy, good high school read. I call it Girl Interrupted meets Legally Blonde. So it's got like a very like formulaic, if you will, for lack of a better term, story structure, like you're watching a movie, for example, but the topics that are written about are very heavy. And so basically, it's the story of Nif. She's our main character, and she is a high school senior who lives in a small town in Minnesota and has big dreams of going to Los Angeles and becoming a professional singer. And she gets this solo in her choir presentation, if you will, and she works really hard on it, and she hits this note, and everything's coming together. Basically, her dreams are coming true, and she meets this woman who's going to feature her on TV, and so she's on her way to this like awesome TV show, and she's super excited about it, and something tragic happens, and it completely derails her dreams. She ends up with post-traumatic stress disorder. She can't read. She stutters when she talks. She forgets basic words. She's not sleeping. She's having flashbacks and panic attacks. And so obviously she can't sing because she loses her voice basically in more ways than one. And so we see her go through this journey of healing. And the way that I wrote it was a lot of internal dialogue so that people reading it could understand what it's like to have post-traumatic stress disorder and mental illness and all of that experience, and have ways to discuss those really hard subjects on a more easy level, if you will. So that's and throughout the book, she heals and she finds her voice again. And it's a really empowering ending that I hope people will like put it down and cheer for. But that's essentially what the book is. And so it's kind of written, as a way to like share my experience with post-traumatic stress disorder in a way that younger people could relate to, and giving them tools and terminology to use to have the conversations that need to be had.
It sounds like a brave exploration of optimism in the face of trauma, in the face of great stress, in the face of a lot of truly negative experiences. I mean, it's easy to be optimistic when everything's going exactly the way you wanted it to, but your book kind of sounds like a playbook for how to find that optimism and pursue that optimism in a situation that may not give cause to optimism. And now if I adapt that into the education setting, as an education system, we are going through a collective trauma in the form of the COVID lockdown and pandemic and what that did on all of the different education stakeholders, teachers, students, parents. It's been a collective trauma for our whole industry. Are there any lessons in aggressive optimism that we could be applying as a system to help us navigate the aftermath and bring all of our stakeholders out to a positive outcome?
I absolutely think so. So the way that I look at implementing a mindset formula, if you will, or just tools, right? Like mental health tools, is to remove emotion from them. Like, you're not going to dwell on the fact that you have a broken leg. You're going to go and you're going to like get it set. You're going to fix it. You're going to go through therapy. You're going to implement all of these tools that you have at your disposal to heal your broken leg. It might not ever be the same again. Like, I'm not the same person I was after PTSD, before PTSD, but that just is. And I spent a lot of time judging my mental health and judging where I was at in life, because one minute my dreams were coming true. It's same for Nif. One minute her dreams are coming true, and the next minute she can't even read and remember the word salt. Like, there's a scene in the book that is absolutely 100% true to what happened to me. I was sitting at a kitchen table. Nif is sitting at a kitchen table, and she just wants the salt passed to her, and her brain is just like broken. She can't remember the word, right? So how do you deal with being like at the top of your game, thinking your world is going to be like the greatest adventure you could ever imagine, to like, I can't remember basic words? That's pretty horrific, right? But a lot of the time that I spent healing was spent justifying the fact that I needed to get help, denying the fact that I needed to get help, putting all of these like negative emotions on top of the actual negative emotions that I was already dealing with. And so for me, it would be to have conversations about mental health in a much more pragmatic and logical way. And I feel like the book allows for educators and parents to enter into that room in a more confident position because they now have gone through this journey with the lead character in the book and understand what she's thinking and understand what she's going through and kind of understand a different way to approach someone who has trauma, someone who has depression, someone who has, divorce in their family, like whatever's going on with the kid that is in front of them or the young person in front of them, they'll be better equipped to figure out a way through it. And that's the optimistic part, right? It's not like, oh, everything's going to be fine. It's acknowledging like, oh, that's horrible, right?
Yeah.
But then not living in that acknowledgement, which I think is what happens now, is like we're so attuned to people having a hard time that we have kind of let everybody dwell in it instead of being like, yes, and now we're going to move forward. Yes, and what do you have to do to, like I battled depression. What do I have to do? I have a whole toolbox of things that will make me feel better. But it's only through all of this like therapy and journeying that I have those tools. And I feel like Aggressive Optimism as a book is a huge toolbox for students and educators alike.
That sounds like really important resources and having us adopt the right mindset in education, which is, avoiding the trap of, avoiding either the trap of just being negative, there's nothing we can do. It's over, making excuses and just, dwelling in where we are, or the other trap of the, other problem, which is the toxic positivity. Everything's great. We can do it, without actually talking about what the how of doing it looks like or putting in the work to heal and to find the healing. Instead, you're saying it's aggressive optimism, and at the risk of just butchering this as to try to paraphrase what you're talking about, what I'm hearing here is acknowledging the trauma and appreciating the trauma, not living in it and dwelling in it. Instead, making a commitment to put in the work and, not just saying it's going to be okay like the toxic positivity movement wants us to do, but saying I'm going to make it okay because me and the people around me are going to put in the work and take it one step at a time and be aggressively optimistic that we can do this.
Oh my gosh, you paraphrased it perfectly.
Oh, bless you. Thank you.
Perfectly. No, that's exactly what it is. I feel like it's the middle, right? It's like, it's not, again, because it takes out the emotion. It really is this mindset of practicality, if you will. But like I used to get so upset, right? Growing up, I've always been like just a natural optimist. It's just how I am. And people would be like, oh, you're such a Pollyanna, or oh, like I'm more realistic than you. And I'm like, why is it that negative is more real than positive? But then I started to realize like, well, there's got to be a middle, right? Like if something negative is going on and you ignore it, y'all, literally, I didn't sleep for 8 months because I didn't feel like my diagnosis was, like my experience was valid enough to have the diagnosis I had, right? Because at the time when this happened, so a little bit about my actual story that NIF is based on is I moved to Los Angeles to become an actor. I was on the last episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which at that time was like one of the biggest shows in the entire world. And I thought my dreams were coming true. And then I was at the farmer's market in Santa Monica when an old man ran through the farmer's market. He drove down 4 blocks of people, 10 people died and over 60 of us were injured. And I saw personally 3 people die that day, and my brain couldn't handle it. But at the time, PTSD was a diagnosis that they gave to veterans. They gave to war or to soldiers, right? And so when I was diagnosed with it, I literally was like, I'm not a soldier. Like, this doesn't make sense to me. And so I denied my diagnosis for a long, long time. 8 months, I refused medication. I refused help. I refused all of this stuff. And I ended up in the psych ward because I didn't sleep. And believe me, I can go on and on and on about how important sleep is, but that's a whole other conversation. But because of that, like, I'm so passionate about getting people to acknowledge that things are bad when they're bad, but then not let themselves, I don't know if you've experienced this, but my experience with young people is, if someone's not acknowledging that something is bad in my life and I need them to, I'm going to make it worse. Right? It's like, I am feeling depressed. Well, go for a walk. Like, whatever the comeback is, that is like not acknowledging what they're feeling in the moment. And so now I'm going to get worse in my depression so that you understand how depressed I actually feel. So that's what I am trying to prevent with this book. Does that make sense? I see your face and I'm not sure
it makes
making myself
a great
clear.
deal of sense. And I am so appreciative of you sharing your personal story, not only directly on this program, but through the pages of the Aggressive Optimism novel. This sounds like a really important read for all of us in education, going through the collective trauma that we've gone through the last 3 or 4 years.
I hope so.
And trying to heal, not just psychologically, but healing as an education system to try to continue to deliver for the students that we serve. Really appreciate the lessons that you're sharing here. You can find out more about our guest's work by visiting jennaedwards.com. And it sounds like we want to keep track of you because you may have some great education resources for us pretty soon around this aggressive optimism concept. That's all really exciting. Before we let you go, Jenna, we got one last question for you. If with the snap of your fingers, you could make any change to the education system, what change would it be?
I mean, it would obviously be to get my novel in as curriculum for high school students so that these conversations can be had in a much more effective way. I'm working with a guidance counselor right now to create a curriculum so that dream comes to fruition. So yes, please follow me and go to my website, jennaedwards.com, so that I can give that curriculum to you if you so choose to implement it. I also offer a bulk discount, just so you know, for educators.
Oh, very excellent. Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth there. I was just about to say, when that stuff comes together, please send it my way. I know a lot of interested schools that would love to get resources like that. Jenna, thank you so much for sharing your insights with us this week.
Oh, gosh. Thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity and what you're doing on the show. And thank you to all the educators. I know it's been a tough road, but y'all are killing it. Please know that you're appreciated.
We try to do that here every day. Thank you for that. Thank you all for checking out Big Ideas in Education. We'll see you next week.
The views expressed on the preceding program have been those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views of Academica, its clients, staff, affiliates, or advertisers.